Hey everybody, welcome back. Episode 3 of A Link Between Oracles. Blind Wolf here with Jack. We are about to talk about Dungeons 3 and 4 of the Oracle games. Jack, how's it going?
It's going really, really well.
Really well.
It is going so well. I love this game. It is going really well. I haven't done a lot of the trading quests yet because I've just been focusing on the dungeons and the actual exploration of the world, and considering I have 2 worlds to explore every time I'm headed towards a new season on the Rod of Seasons.
So does that change the entire world?
So the way the Rod of Seasons work is every time you switch the season, manually, it recreates the immediate area you're in. So let's say, just for shits and giggles,
Sure.
we are in the Spyglass Lake area, and I hop on a tree stump in that area, and I change it from whatever season it naturally is when you enter the area to winter. The entire area of Spyglass Lake will now be winter, and there will be piles of snow. There will be big mounds that you can actually walk on that would normally be big gaps that you want to be able to cross.
Gotcha.
And if I change it to spring or summer, there might be more water and melted places where if I don't have flippers, I can't swim. So it completely changes an area for a while, and you interact with that area differently based on what season it is.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't change the entire world every time you use it. Every time you enter a new area, you have to find a stump if you need to change the seasons. But there are portals to a place called Subrosia that is full of people who look like this. I will show you. They kind of remind me of some Nintendo bullshit.
Totally.
They look like that, and you can actually get a ring in the game that lets you turn into one of them. But unfortunately, you can't use any of your equipment, so it's you can't even use the rock feather, so it's kind of pointless.
So purely to look cute.
It's purely to look cute.
Gotcha.
So every time I go there, I have to explore and kind of open up new areas and that. So I've been kind of foregoing the trading quest. I'm only on the second or third item, but
Gotcha.
It's been fun.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. So today's episode, we're going to be focusing on, like I said, the third and fourth dungeons and anything that happens in between that. Oracle of Seasons, of course, comes first, so I'll let you go off and explain at least the first dungeon, which would be the third. And up until the end of that, if you want to go ahead and take it away with where we left off on your last dungeon, go ahead.
Ooh, where we left off. Ooh, it was Snake Remains. Yeah, I was still in weak sauce dungeons, to where they weren't really throwing anything tough at you because they're like, we want you to just get used to the mechanics. But right after you finish the Snake Pass or Snake Remains, the first real side quest opens up, I would say, and it is you start encountering these mysterious flutes in different places. You can buy the flute in Subrosia when you go there the first time. You can, in the store in town, in the main town, a flute will appear, and they're just referred to as mysterious flutes. And then the third option in Seasons is you will naturally stumble across this animal. And his name is Ricky, and he is a kangaroo.
Yes.
And Ricky has had his gloves stolen by Blano. So you have to go to Blano, unequip all your items, and you have a boxing match with this guy.
That's cool.
And you have to get him outside the ring. And if you try to use an item, he says you cheat. And then it costs you 200 rupees every time you face him from then on out.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and I didn't know if I couldn't use all items or just weapons, so I tried to equip the feather so I could jump around, because the Rock's Feather is the best item in Zelda history. But no, I got kicked out for cheating. And eventually you win his gloves, and you go back to Ricky, and Ricky goes, cool, thanks for getting me my gloves. I am going to let you hop around in my pouch. I can hop up big cliffs, and I can do a wind-up punch that sends a whirlwind of tornado, a whirlwind tornado flying straight forward and clearing everything, enemies and grass and things in its wake, and then I can hop over small holes. So you get him before you have the Rock's Feather, actually, if I am not an idiot. You actually, yeah, you get the Rock's Feather in the third dungeon.
Okay.
And because you got yours in the second one, right?
I think so, yeah.
I think I made a mental note of they fucked me over by giving me,
It was like real early on.
But you travel through Spool Swamp, and this is kind of the first area where it stops giving you prompts on like obvious things to do, and you kind of have to do some exploration. So the first thing you do is you go to this house and you flick a switch, and then you see a key because you're trying to find a key to open this place. Ricky does not swim anything with water. He will drown, and then like you'll reappear kind of where you entered the area. And you have to go through Spool Swamp, but he gives you a flute. And if you haven't already had flutes, that's the important thing. If you get a flute from somebody else, after you give him back his gloves and go through the initial place you need to hop up, you will no longer be able to use Ricky. You get to choose only one of them for the game. Gotcha. And so I like Ricky. I've liked Ricky since I was a kid. That was always the one I went with. So I chose Ricky, which made getting through Spool Swamp a lot easier because I didn't have to rely on swimming through water with one of the other animal companions and flying great distances, but then not being able to fly for too long with another one, which we'll talk about later, I think. And you make your way to Subrosia to get your second season, but first you need to do some digging. So you have to get a bunch of money to go to the market in Subrosia that only uses ore that can be found by digging, and everything costs a lot of money, but if you do it right and you buy enough stuff, then the guy starts haggling with you. So you can buy stuff for ember seeds or mystery seeds and some rupees or just ore or a mix of the two, which I think is really cool that they would have a shop that kind of has this like barter and haggle system that isn't in it's not Labrina, it's Holodrum that isn't in Holodrum. And you get all this stuff, and then there's this really weird item called a bow, and I picked it up thinking it was going to be part of a trade quest, and I couldn't remember if there was a second trade quest in the game and that like they had two different outcomes, but I was wrong. I actually needed to meet some honeys in Subrosia. I had to get real sweet on the ladies.
Really?
And because a specific lady, her name is Rosa, and Rosa has the key that unlocks every single door in Subrosia, and you need it to get from where you enter to the temple through a door and to get the season of spring. Okay. And once you take her out on a nice date, which really the date is taking her to the temple, it's not even a really nice date. You give her this bow, and she's like, "Yes, so nice, awesome."
Pull the wool over her eyes.
Exactly. She got a $300 bow out of it, so I guess she got something real good out of it. But you take her on a date, and you can take her around Subrosia, and people like are all jealous of you, and they're like, "Oh my God, how?" You have to get a special star-shaped ore, which is only buried at the beach, so it takes a long time if you don't know where to look. There are 4 specific areas that you can only find it in, but like if you're the first time playing it, you're not going to know unless you have a walkthrough. But then you trade the star-shaped door for the ribbon, take it back to Rosa. She has the key that unlocks all the doors in Subrosia, and you can go on some, like, you can actually go on a date. You can take her to the dance hall, you can talk to people, and they get real snarky with you because you're on a date with Rosa and you look weird and you don't dress like everybody, because everybody in this world dresses in the same cloak, and most of them wear the green one. There's these 2 fuckers that wear a blue and a yellow one, or a blue and a red one, and we don't mess around with them. They're annoying, and I'll explain why later. And then Rosa wears the yellow robe, and she's like the prettiest Subrosian of all time, and she's amazing. But you take her to the temple, and you get the power of spring, and then you come back to the swamp, use the power of spring to melt the ice, and but keep the water level moderate. Summer really dries out all of the water, from what I can remember. But you melt some of the ice so you can get to the 3rd dungeon that you open with your key, and then you enter the poison moth's lair.
Jeez, so much side questing I'm seeing already.
Yeah,
I mean, it's same as happening in ages.
But I really like it because it's not really like go here, now go here, now go here, now go back, now go back, now go back. Keep flipping back and forth. It's a lot of, you are here, you're going to adventure for a little bit, then you're going to go to a new place, you're going to adventure there for a little bit, and then you might come back, or you might continue on. So I really like the way that Seasons is more paced for adventure rather than puzzle solving, or like honestly, the story is really loose, I think, compared to Ages. From what I remember, it's a lot less like, this is happening, now do this, help us. It's, you are kind of interacting with these people outside of the villages, but other than that, you're just on your own. But you enter the Poison Moth's lair, and the first thing about this dungeon that I will say is that there's water in it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of water, but there's water in it, and it's a fucking chore. And it's a chore.
Do you have flippers yet?
No.
No. Okay.
I do not have the flippers yet.
That's what makes it a chore.
Yes. And it's got some nice, like, action puzzles, as I like to call them, where they're, like, kind of puzzles, but they're more based on where you place yourself while things are happening. So, like, there are these heavy rollers that you have to roll, but then there's spikes in the floor, so while you're rolling it, you have to move yourself along this path and keep that momentum going before you finally let it go and try and run around without taking damage. And if you don't go fast enough, it'll push you all the way back through the spikes.
Right.
There's a lot of side scrolling platformer sections in this dungeon, and I really enjoy that because I like platformers. The Mario.
Yeah, 2D Mario.
The 2D Mario interludes.
Yeah.
And there was this really cool thing. You get the Pegasus seeds right before this. And there's this one moment right before you get the Rock's Feather that, like, it makes you think like you need the Pegasus seeds, where you hit a button and the floor starts to go away, so you have to run to the end to get there. But really it is, you have to wait till you get the Rock's Feather earlier in the dungeon and then come back and jump over the switch so that it doesn't even trigger that trap. Because there is no way to actually get across it if you hit the button. Even if you're running Pegasus Seed and Rock's Feather, you won't make it across. Gotcha. So it's like these really cool things that are not really the way that Pokemon handles roadblocks, which is literally just someone saying, no, you can't go here. Not yet. Or the way, and I know you're going to hate me for saying this, but the way that Ocarina of Time handles roadblocks. It's a, no, you can't go here yet because you haven't filled the prerequisite. It's just kind of like, we're going to make it so you have to outthink this with an item that you'll pick up later. So it makes it feel like it's less of a developer stopping you and more of a, oh, I haven't done enough exploring yet.
Fair. Yeah.
It had a really cool mini boss with the calamar eyes.
What?
Which are squid with eyes in their like little chompers.
Oh my god.
And it's this room where they dive into the floor where the water is, and then you have to wait for them to pop up and avoid fireballs. Pull them out, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's pull them out. You pull them out of the water, then throw them and strike them, and then they'll like bounce back into the water. And it's really cool. That's a really cool way to do a mini boss. And then the rest of the dungeon is pretty standard for a dungeon. I would say that from what I've come across, nothing's too crazy. And then the final boss is Mothula, which is this giant moth that flies around and shoots fireballs at you for a while. And then there are holes in the floor that it's the kind of holes that if you fall into will drop you down into the next floor. So you have to be really careful of where it hits you and where you're placing yourself. And then when it gets low, it starts spawning these little moth babies just to make your life really unfun.
Totally.
Just hate your life. I would say that's a recurring theme in this game. Is that the bosses of dungeons are more centered around like figuring out what's their thing to beat them, and it's more like they do a bunch of stuff, and you just have to be really good at surviving. And I'll see if that runs further on into the later dungeons or not. But so far, most of the bosses have been like, we're going to throw a lot of little things at you. You have to just survive until you can get a open moment to kill them. And same with the mini bosses too. There's a lot of projectiles in Seasons from compared to Ages from what I remember, but it could be wrong. And then that was the end of the third one, and I'm going to take a break because there was a lot that happened before the Dancing Dragon. So I'm going to let you take over with your third dungeon.
Great. Okay, yeah. Pegasus Seeds, you already got them, like, third dungeon. I was just playing through, like, the 6th dungeon last night, and I just got Pegasus Seeds. like recently. So that's funny. I left with the wing dungeon. So after the wing dungeon, you get a notification from the Meiku tree, who just, obviously just can talk to you from wherever, and she was like, oh, it's on this island to the south, and you're like, cool, I have no idea how to swim or how to get there. So it is kind of a lot of side questing to figure that out.
Yeah, I remember that island.
You do figure that you need to get a raft to the island, and in order to get to the raft to the island, you need like this rope. So you have to travel back to the past for that. I
Nobody
think.
has rope in the present.
It's like a specific kind of rope.
Yes.
I don't know. And he's just like,
it's the past. It's the rope to the past.
It's Chevel's rope, apparently. It's like super important. But anyway, you find your way, and you get guidance that there might be something in the graveyard to help you. So you go back to the graveyard, and there you meet an animal companion as well, and he's a winged bear.
Moosh!
Moosh is his name, and he's a winged bear, and he's just the cutest. And you save him from the ghosts, and he's like, oh, I'll let you ride my back. And then you're able to ride his back and go over all these gaps that you need to go across in the graveyard to reach a certain grave. And once you go down into that grave, you find the flippers. You're like, yes, I have flippers. Yes, I already got the flippers. You already got Pegasus seeds, so fuck you.
Oh, I'm sorry. The flippers are a lot better than the Pegasus seeds. The Pegasus seeds just cut down travel time maybe by a minute or
There's
two.
a lot of travel time in this game.
Have you got Gale seeds yet?
Yeah.
Okay, like those, I forgot how good those are.
Yeah.
Until I was needing to go back and forth between the main town, and then I was just like, Gale seeds, duh.
We'll get there though. So you're like, cool, I got flippers. I can swim to this island. Nope, you go into the water and it's like, sorry, the current's too strong. You're like, what the hell? I was like, what the hell? So you go back to this guy who's like, oh, I'll give you this raft. And you're like, awesome, I could get this raft. And he's like, but you're going to need a chart first. I'm like, are you kidding me? So I have to go find a chart now. So I go back around, a lot of searching and a lot of just wandering. Finally, I found Ricky as well. He was in the forest, and he was like, hey, I left my boxing glove on the beach. I don't know where it is. And you're like...
Oh, I just left it on the beach.
You're like, okay, dude, maybe you could help me? But no, he just stands there. And you go find his boxing glove for him, bring it back. He's like, cool, I'll let you, ride me and do the thing. And, I'll put you in my pouch. And you're like, cool, thanks, Ricky.
Did you get a flute for any of them yet?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
It happens after the third dungeon, I believe, for me. So Ricky helps you out, and you kind of find your way up the cliffs, and you find Tingle.
Okay. We're going to take a short break from this podcast for me to just talk about how I fucking hate Tingle. Tingle is the worst character ever created in almost any game ever. Ever. It's just a creepy, perverted man in a skin-tight suit of green cloth that looks like a fucking bad onion, and he just is creepy. He puts creepy makeup on. He only talks to children, and he's
creepy.
all creepy about them dancing with him and like riding balloons with him. Tingle is the worst. He's the absolute worst.
So Tingle, yeah, he is the worst. I'm not a fan of Tingle. He's pretty creepy. He's a pretty creepy dude, but he gives you the chart, which is fine. And you're like, okay, I'll take the chart and please.
I'd be careful with that chart and where that chart leads.
I know, right? It doesn't lead anywhere good, actually. But you do get the chart. You're able to use the raft, and the moment you hit the you hit the water with your raft, you're sucked into a storm, which is great. And it's like all this time I spent just to be blown into a storm. Anyway. But when the storm subsides, you are washed onto an island where there are these little guys who look like chameleons, and they're called the Tokays. And they're like...
I love them.
It's a little lizard man.
I very fondly remember stumbling across that island when I played Ages recently and just being like, why did they never come back in any other Zelda?
And they are adorable, and they're very sweet, but they're kind of douchebags. And I'll tell you why. They are, okay? Because this is the thing, is like, they steal all your shit. They see you wash onto the island, and they're like, oh, you're a weird non-green Tokay. Like, you have the green clothes, though, so you must be one. You're like, no, not quite, but anyway. So they take all your stuff, and then you have to navigate through this island using basically no items, because all your items are gone now. And every time you find a Tokay, they'll have one of your items, and you talk to them, and they're like, oh, I just grabbed this because I thought I'd just run away with it and steal it. I mean, just kidding. I thought I was just going to keep it safe for you. Here it is. You can have it back.
Tricksy hobbitses.
You're exactly. You're just like, thanks, dude. So you definitely were stealing this. And then there's one particular Toge who I hate. Who's in a shop with two of your items on the floor. Your power ring, which lets you like lift things up, which would definitely help you navigate through this island, and the Rock's Feather, which, as you know, is great.
It's the best item.
So you're like, hey, and he's like, hey, and you're like, hey,
and he's like,
give me my shit back.
And he's like, you need to buy it.
He's like, exactly. He's like, what can you trade me for these items? You're like, dude, why do I have to trade you items that are already mine to get items back that you stole from me? It's such a broken system. But anyway, you give him your shovel.
He thought you were dead on the beach.
So he just repossessed your items and is like, sorry, not giving them back now. You have to trade me for them. Dumb. But you give him the shovel and he gives you like one of the items and you're like, okay. And then you basically have to go back and trade him and continue trading him back for each item, depending on which item you need for which part of the island you're trying to go to.
Which I will say, like, that concept, if it wasn't set up in such a way, is actually a really cool way to like limit your items and make you like figure out where you need to go next. And it's all right, if I'm gonna do this challenge, I have to give up this item and do it this way.
No, it was cleverly done. I appreciated the puzzle value of it. It was just, I was so pissed at those stupid Tokes. But you go through the island. You eventually do find your harp again, so you're able to go back to the present or the past. I'm not sure where you are at this point, but you go back to the other time period. And you're able to kind of navigate through both. You move some seeds around, and there's like these seeds that you find on the floor. They're big, thick seeds, and you push them up against these walls, and then you travel in the past. And you travel to the present, and they grow like vines up the walls, which is cool. So then now you have a new path that you can go through in the future or the present. So yeah, you basically navigate through, and eventually the next dungeon is on this island, which works out perfectly, which is the Moonlit Grotto. And that was the next dungeon that I went into. This dungeon was cool, and like one of the first rooms you encounter, you see those little like bunny guys. What are they called?
Not bomb shoes, but Pole's voice.
Pole's voice.
They are ghosts with big whiskers and bunny ears.
Yeah, those guys. So like weird. They were weird in the past Zelda game I saw them in, which was, I think, Link's Awakening. They were in there somewhere. But in this one, like, you play your harp and they just die, which was pretty crazy.
What?
Yeah.
I used to fucking bomb every single one of those assholes when they are in my game. Damn, dude.
Yeah, they just die. And then another fun thing that we find in this dungeon is a new kind of puzzle that is reoccurring in next dungeons as well. It's the rotating platform, which you step on the platform. It's kind of segmented into 4 parts, kind of like one of those elevators, and you step on the platform and it turns one way. And then when it turns that way, it switches itself back so that if you step on it again, it just switches back. So you have to basically step on it so it goes one way and then go like around the entire map to the other part if you want to switch it, and then you have to like go back to the other part. And yeah, there's a lot going on with that. A lot of steps taken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of those types of puzzles.
Yeah, it's a time consuming. And the other thing is, like, it's very much like, I find it kind of similar to the box ones, where it's like those box with the colors. I don't know if you've seen them. And you have to push them
and it just takes. But the thing about the colors is it's all in the same room. Yeah. So you just have to like you have to like outsmart the color. Sure. You have to like figure it out, and then when you finish that, you feel like, oh cool, I figured out that puzzle. I feel really good about myself. Like with the rotating platforms, you're just like, when you have to backtrack to the original room and then get back all the way across, you're like, oh, I need to go through like 9 more rooms.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot. It sure is. But anyway, that was fine. And then I did find a new item in this dungeon, which was a seed shooter, which I thought was really interesting. So now you're able to shoot the seeds that you find. I think so far there's only like ember seeds and maybe mystery seeds that I've gotten so far at this point. And then there's like stink seeds, I think. Or
scent
like,
seeds,
yeah. The scent, like they just like smell bad, I guess.
I think they attract enemies to there. I never use them unless I need to hit a switch.
I use them exactly for that reason. Yeah, they're just great for filler. But that's cool. So it's like actually like a thing that, because this is the first projectile in the game so far, and for a while that I found. But it's actually really effective because you're able to shoot these seeds, and then if they don't hit anything, they'll bounce off the walls and then like continue on, which is cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So using the seed shooter, there's also like a lot of switches that you have to hit using that. So there are more puzzles like that. There's certain things where you'll step on a lever or something, and then like there will be like a kind of like widget kind of like stick thing in the middle of like nothingness, and you press on the lever and it like will change the angle so that when you shoot it, the seed will bounce off at a different angle.
That is one of the coolest like supplementary puzzles that they've added to any handheld Zelda game that I think is just such a smart idea. That's like you have to hit the switch that'll then help you hit the thing that you really need to hit.
Exactly.
It's really cool.
Or it's like sometimes you're like, oh, I have to hit it so it like reflects off this angle and goes in, but instead it's like, no, it's just creating like an angled opening so that you have to like angle it through those. It's like, yeah, it's very dynamic. It's cool. I liked it. There was a mini boss in this as well. His name was Subterror, and he's just
Subterror.
Not as intimidating as it sounds. He's just like, it looks like kind of like a little like walrus guy, narwhal.
Oh yeah.
In like the ground, who just kind of burrows. He's like, haha, you'll never find me. And then
it's Grounder from Sonic the Hedgehog.
The thing I did find really cool about that boss though is that you use the shovel on the mini boss to beat him. Like that was cool.
Lets you use the. Again, Ages is figure out the way to beat the boss, because it's really not that hard to survive most of the time.
Yeah, but I never had seen that. And even in some past Zelda games that I played, I think even in A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, there were certain bosses where like you got a cool item, but it's like, yeah, that item is cool in this dungeon, but you don't really need it to beat the boss. Whereas like this is cool because it's like, oh, you actually need the fucking shovel to beat this mini boss. Like you have to like basically he burrows underneath, and then you have to follow his burrow and then dig him up and then attack him. So I thought that was kind of cool, and went through the rest of the boss the rest of the dungeon just fine. And the final boss here is the Shadow Hag, which I thought was cool. Kind of seemed to me like a throwback to Ocarina of Time, which was before this game. Because that looks like the Poe sisters from the Forest Temple.
Yeah. It most likely is,
in
to
Ocarina.
Be honest.
Yeah, it looks a lot like it. But she's the Shadow Hag, and she was cool because like she kind of like she said, she creeps in the shadows, and then like you had to turn your back on her for her to come out, and then she's like, and she comes out like a Boo, like kind of in Mario. But then she comes out and speeds towards you, and basically how you beat her is you have to shoot a seed off the wall in front of you, which then in turn reflects back and and hits her in the face
over your shoulder.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool boss. So I was pretty pleased with that. And at the end of this dungeon, you are rewarded with another Essence of Time, which is the Echoing Howl. And the description you get in the game is, it echoes far across the plains to speak to insolent hearts.
Dang, I got...
So metal.
Yeah, I got the Bright Sun, the Essence of Bright Sun, or the... No, it's the... Okay, so it's the third Essence of Nature, the Bright Sun, and it's young shoots grow quickly under the warm rays of the bright sun. Mine are not that great.
Yeah, I didn't mention mine last time. I remember in the last episode you asked me about those, and I didn't have the actual proper names for them. But the first dungeon, I got the Eternal Spirit, and the second dungeon was the Ancient Wood. Got Ancient Wood? You hate me.
No, I don't. I hate whoever literally did not think about that, because I'm sure that was a joke in the office. It was the Ancient Wood.
Ancient Wood. Anyway, so that was that.
All right.
Yeah.
Here's my question.
Yeah. What's up?
Do you feel like you're getting an adventure in yours, or is yours more of a story? Like that you are playing through. Do you think you're building your own adventure, or you are playing through a story?
I would say more playing through a story, but I feel like a lot. I feel like a lot of the filler, like the in between dungeons, seems exactly like that. It seems like filler. Like a lot of those seem like, and now you got to do this, and you got to do everything is like prerequisite for the next dungeon. It seems, and not so much as like explore and do fun things and like things will happen. It's more like you gotta do the things. You gotta do the things, or you can't get to the next thing. You know?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I would say like in seasons, I'm feeling that a lot less. I feel like because, and it might just be because Sub Rogia is so different from Holodrum that like when I go there, it's not like I'm having to do this thing. It's like cool, new world to explore. Let me go talk to all the people down here. Let me see what it's about. This is a place where it's subterranean with lavas and volcanoes that just like explode, and there's a dance hall that gives you, I think, was it the power bracelet? Is that how I got that one? It was the,
Is that from
I think that's how I got the through the dancing hall. So like I would say that's the biggest thing is like I'm not feeling that much of a story that is preset. I feel like most of this has just been like go have an adventure, and meanwhile there is like this plot that's also going on, but like it's really not story heavy.
Nice. Yeah. Definitely different. All right, so that's kind of a lot that we just covered right there. Even though it's just the third dungeon, I was trying to do 2 episodes at a time with this, or 2 dungeons each episode, but that seemed like a lot. And like I said, there's a lot of side questing, obviously, that's going on in both of our games. So I think that's probably a good place to call it quits for here. Next time we'll talk about the 4th dungeon and everything leading up to that. Any final comments?
No, there was just a lot leading up to my 4th dungeon. It was around 6 hours of playtime.
No way.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Wow.
How much I think I even texted you about it. I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna be done because I have not gotten to even where the 4th dungeon is yet, and I'm still doing stuff and on my way to like finish up stuff. So
yeah, there's a lot in between. It seems like there's a lot in between, and maybe that's just more of like play style. Like personally, I'm more about like let's get to the dungeons, and maybe you're more of like I like exploring anyway. So maybe that's just how we feel about those for that reason as well.
That might be.
But cool. All right. We'll talk about that in the next episode.
All right. See you guys next time.
All right. Signing off.